Fast forward, any come out channel so AG Politics Avenue. Podcast also training because we headlines. You know, the jam right now, it be exomo, our, and it ma Raximus, and it can. If you bit me, I subscribe to the channel, hit notification bell, so share. Now, out of work council answer into Canadian Raximunia, Yanko political highways, and them are any some Kotokra. Not yet, come on. So, young Martin people, a private legal practitioner. I mean, can say, what make exposition for a year. Nana dan kwa Akuffo Addo ne era sata mono omukɔgye loan bi ɛwɔ IMF a onia sika na omukɔgye ye no omu ehu baabi a ebi afa me no ka sɛ papa no atinte sokɔ egu ɛyɛ nsibi mu a omu ɛde nhyehyɛ mapa nso ɛde egu ɛkwan mu a omu hwɛ na omu retrieve says kano at this point in time let's say ebobo ewra nsimnim na yahwɛ ne yɛkɔ ɛne de yɛba meda sɛ ba gyemre ɛwɔ ha AGH Politics Avenue.
Morning, Mr. Kansi. Morning. It's good to be here once again. It's a Saturday morning, right? Good people of Ghana, good morning. And thank you for making this program the best, uncontested, and unparalleled, right? So we'll do the rituals. Once again, we want to thank this Togbe Apede for standing up during the bad regime of Akuffo Addo. Yes, and to us of Akuffo, former Chief Justice. Yes, Domahine Osiadio Ajmabedu the second, Kentucky Tech, which through the second, right? Yes, and of course, we'll remind the Office of Special Prosecutor about the 52.5 billion that case has been reported to them, and so we have to see how far they've gone, right? And the same with the Auditor General Johnson, Ekwia. You know, he promised over 4 years ago, so 5 and something years ago, that he would get to the bottom of that 52.5 billion. Money far in excess of what we borrowed from the IMF, and yet we can't find that money, and there's no explanation. This is not it. And of course, as usual, men above 40, please, your prostate health, please check. Let's not lose you unnecessarily. Thank you.
The lead advocate for this, Council. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. And this is it. And this is where I start off with you, Professor Bopin, on what you just saw. That is the lived reality of people this week with this public transport situation, even though we're seeing this one. Look at petrol. At this point, we should have been smiling, is it not?
Well, good morning. So if you say this is a lived experience of people this week, this is what people have been going through for several years. Several years. It's just getting worse because largely it's a reflection of lack of planning. Urban planning and forecasting to determine the growth and the demand. And then critically, what you see here and what Ghanaians have been going through for years, it's a good indicator of the huge infrastructure deficit in the urban, peri-urban. Particularly, I'm linking that to road connectivity.
Right.
So if you look at the travel time between High Street and Adenta, when people close from work, it means that how often a trotro can go to Adenta and come back and reload is very restricted.
Sure.
Very restricted. And as a country, we haven't taken time to analyze this and understand our rush hour in the morning and then close of work so that we deploy specific interventions within this period. Elsewhere in other countries, they recognize the rush hour and how do we manage that? Sure. Essentially, we have left this to the fate of Ghanaians. If you survive, fine. Otherwise, it's your own problem and all of that. And I think I've also gone through this before. I mean,
we all have, in fact.
Yes.
But you've seen over time some sort of an attempt to address the rush hour situation with the deployment of buses to apply specific routes to where we know it's traffic prone. Now we saw with Metro Mass, over 1,000 buses, 600 and over have broken down, and just about 400 are on the road.
A lot of these things, the sustainability, if it's born out of planning, you reinforce it and all of that, because population is growing. There is rural-urban migration and all of that. So clearly, this is unfortunate. In fact, if you look at this broadly, and also the microeconomy, one is tempted to say with caution that our leaders should be moderate how we celebrate success and achievement.
Our leaders should be moderate.
Yes.
How we celebrate success.
And how we seek to create a certain narrative of arrival.
How do you mean?
Or achievement, because there's a huge disconnect between the macro level achievement, you've highlighted that, and then at the micro level. It may not be necessarily the fault of government, but it takes time for macro level development to translate to the micro and improve livelihoods in a way that every or majority of Ghanaians can associate with that. And the reason is also, so the extent to which this macro level development will translate to improve livelihoods at the micro level, at the household level, would also depend on a number of factors. And in this country, one of the biggest challenge, restriction to our growth drivers has to do with poor road connectivity. Look, almost 100% of Ghana's freight activity system is dependent on roads, which is environmentally taxing, right? And in the last 25 years, if you see the growth, urbanization and all of that, road network, both in terms of expansion and then also the quality, has failed to track that progress.
True.
Our food inflation, more than 30% of the price build-up is as a result of transport challenges. It's as a result of transport challenges.
That's transporting the food from the food basket areas to
So sometimes the reason why we are hungry in Accra is not because our farmers are lazy. It's because the distance between where the farmland is and where our mouth is in urban and peri-urban areas is becoming wider and wider. And we are unable to improve that connectivity and efficiency for transport. The strategy that worked in the 70s, call it Operation Feed Yourself, Operation Feed Industries, probably worked within the shortest possible time. Today, that won't work because the threat of real estate, urbanization to farmland. Okay, so the more you see all of this, the more you see that we are pushing farmland further away from urban and peri-urban. And really, I haven't seen, Ghanaians should forgive me, I haven't seen a national policy to preserve farmland.
There should be a deliberate...
Even within urban and peri-urban areas. Because when you go to advanced countries, you see in the heart of the city, farming, because it's life.
Now we sold all. We've seen
urbanization, real estate, and all of that. So these things it's good that they are showing up. They've been there all this while. Look, and Alfred, let me give you a couple of examples. In the last 15 years, Ghana has failed to progress relative to some of our peers, even including Cote d'Ivoire. If you look at the IMF's road quality index, which they track by using the cross-country travel time, what they measure called the mean speed score, Ghana is not in the top 10 in Africa.
In Africa?
We are not in the top 10. Ghana is not in the top 20. We are not in the top 30. In fact, our mean speed score, cross-country, is just around 56 kilometers per hour. So, in other words, even if you have 4x4, how do they call it? Whatever, cross-country, which is designed for speed and all of that, the maximum you can do cross-country on the average is 56.
At least the least. I see.
This is inefficiency. Ivory Coast, they are doing more than 78. Other countries are doing more than 100 and all of that. So when it comes to transportation, speed is efficiency. And of course, we are also mindful of and all of that. Because certain cars are actually not designed to do below 50. You are underutilizing it and all of that. So sometimes you realize that whether you have a car or you are queuing, it makes no difference.
You queue in the traffic.
Yeah, you queue in the traffic. And all of that. Look, time will not allow us. If you look at the health cost, the productivity losses of what we are discussing here is huge. It's huge. That's in terms of, look,
the amount of time you spend in traffic.
You know, during COVID, road accident took away lives much more than COVID itself. For Ghana, the real COVID wasn't the virus. It was road accident. In any serious country, would have declared state of emergency. The number of lives lost to road accident.
During COVID.
Oh, come on. And beyond, annually, you can check that. The only thing is that, in this country, when people die, it looks like nothing has happened.
Yeah, I mean, in 1 year, we had over 3,400 people die on the roads. It's more of a statistical analysis, so that in the next year, we had less of it. So I think then subsequent year, we had 3,200 people die. And then we said, oh, there's been an improvement because as against the previous year, 3,428 people died. And then the next year, 3,220 people died. So that's the improvement. That's the,
yes.
We only look at the statistical reduction.
The productivity losses. Look, deaths and years of life lost permanently. Those who didn't die, but their life is damaged permanently. Look, it's huge. Look, people actually work in traffic rather than working in the office. If you look at when people wake up in the morning, just to make it to the office by 8 a.m. or so, in fact, some people have to wake up by 3 a.m., sometimes by 3:30 a.m. or 4 a.m., they've set off, just to put food on the table. And then when they close, they have to endure this traffic. So on the average, people are sleeping less than 4 hours. Every day, within the 24 hours. If you continue like this, without any break, the health implication, maximum 15 years, your body will give up. So this is huge. Look, it's not only just
this is
food.
A crucial point that that's the health aspect of things.
You know, sometimes when some people get to work, they just can't start work immediately. They have to put their bag down and cool down.
True. Absolutely. That's
before they are able to. I'm not saying this. Look, this thing has been there over the years. Okay, but I'm sure it has become a bit more pronounced because we've seen performance last year, and therefore people want to identify with it directly, and all of that. It will take a while.
So you say that, look, even though all of these indicators are trending in the right direction, it will take a while for it to translate into our lives.
Yes.
That impatience is what you would have to, speak to people about, because you know what? Government is communicating this as the gains. The only way people will make meaning of the gains is when we see a direct reflection of it in our lives, is it not?
Yes, but it will take a while. That's why I'm saying that in the communication, we recognize the progress that has been made. We must also recognize the transmission mechanisms and how long it will take for this improvement to reflect broad-based and all of that. We also can't deny that some of these gains are being felt and all of. We can't deny that. Probably at the scale that every Ghanaian would want to see is not happening right now. But remember that what we have been doing in the last couple of years under the IMF program is a stabilization program. It's to give us macroeconomic stability. Macroeconomic stability is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. Okay, right. So what we are trying to do now is to secure the means that will lead us towards economic transformation. Either you look at it from structural transformation or productivity transformation. So it will take a while. In fact, if you look at the Asian model and other countries, the distance between securing macroeconomic stability and economic transformation took some of these serious countries not less than 15 years of doing the right things consistently. And reforms are more effective, they are bundled together and they reinforce each other. We are unable to do that. You see, since 1992, we tend to achieve relative macroeconomic stability in between elections and crisis. Then, after 2 years or so, all those gains are eroded. So we are unable to build on it to ensure that there is this. Apart from food inflation that I spoke about, close to 30% of manufacturing price build-up in this country is as a result of transport inefficiency and logistical challenges. Manufacturing alone. So if you have such a system, okay, it's going to be very difficult for your private sector to be competitive, and produce at a lower average cost and compete with the likes of China and the rest of them, okay, who are able to produce at much lower cost. In fact, in China, in terms of logistical cross build-up, it's less than 10%. We are doing more than 30%. And you see that in all of this, I mean, previous administration and even now, they recognize this. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If you look at the NDC's, the government's 24-hour policy and accelerated export development, you see how they recognize what we are talking about here this morning. So the 24-hour policy that is broken down into 8 pillars. Of course, the unique thing is to add 24 to all of them. So there's Grow 24, Make 24, and all of that. Sandwich between Grow 24 and Make 24 is Connect 24, which is about the subject we are talking about here today. So there is, from a conceptual point of view, government recognizes that you can have agriculture for economic transformation and scale up in industrialization or add value to your primary product and export without addressing connectivity. So they call that pillar Connect 24. I believe that under that you have the big push and all of that. And personally, I am very heavy on infrastructure. And Ghanaians should forgive me. I will be very happy to say enough of debt to GDP ratio, right? I will be happy to support government if they will say that, look, we want to close the infrastructure gap. And even if that will mean our debt to GDP ratio is going to go up, I will support government to the extent that we can achieve higher value for money for every CD we borrow and we invest appropriately. Do you know why? Because, look, Alfred, when we talk about transformation, there's no basics to start. The basis of economic transformation is infrastructure, transportation, either by road, rail, whatever, and all of that. We don't have that. Look, as we sit here in this country, you can't just tell yourself that I'm getting up and going to Ho and come back. The distance between Shanghai and Beijing is over 1,200 kilometers.
And the travel time is what?
Trains are doing it less than 5 hours. 1,200. The distance between Accra and Kumasi is around 250 kilometers. Right?
Now you do
and it will take you more than 6 hours. If you are not careful, you may not even arrive. In the 90s, if you check this country, we have deteriorated. In the 90s, we had this kind of transport, Peugeot or something, right? Some of them could do Accra Kumasi in 2.5 hours.
1 pound.
Yeah.
1 pound, I don't know how to call it. I hope you understand.
1 pound, yeah.
Some of them could do Accra Kumasi in 2.5 hours. You can see with years and deterioration, even if you have 4x4 cross country, it will not take you less than 5 hours.
Absolutely.
We are not going anywhere. Look, if after almost 69 years of independence, we have not been able to network the 16 or the 10 major regions of this country by express rate, we should apologize to Ghanaians.
You apologize.
We deserve more than this. It's the starting point. Look, when we talk about economic activity, it's largely movement. Any system that restricts movement is inefficiency. And it's the reason why you see this progress at the macro level that is not translating. I hope you understand that. So transport challenges, the inefficiency there, and all of that. What people go through, any serious country should not take their citizens through this. And there are no options. Sometimes, even if your car is of the highest grade and all of that, there are no options.
You cannot move.
It is the reality check that you bring to this situation.
So,
you talked about sorry, you conclude.
So I am happy, in fact,
Yamisha so wajemre ewa sida sene so body no dia dombi edumia ni anu ya. Ebesa ba wram na yasome kwason so pra.